Richard Sterling is the next playable survivor in Identity V, and fans have been on the edge of their seats waiting for his character backdrop or trailer. Well, guess what? Today's the day! Because this morning, NetEase finally decided to bless us with his character trailer and backstory. How exciting, right? But NetEase, as always, decided to drop a character lore that's either partially missing or so cryptic, it might as well be in ancient hieroglyphs. And can I just say, no matter how deep I've tried to dive into Richard's backstory or hunt for any reference, it's like he's a ghost. Theories? Oh, they're floating around, but none of them scream, "Aha! That's it!" Not like my solid theory about Matthias Chernin being based on Matej Kopecky, or Florian Brandt channeling Saint Florian, or Ian Jeffrey Bonavita linking to Jack Bonavita. This time? Nada. Zilch. Okay, wait, correction. I have a few clues, but connecting them to Richard Sterling? Honey, it's like trying to solve a 1,000-piece puzzle with more than half of the pieces missing. But hey, that's what I'm here for, right? So, grab a seat, because today, we're going to dig into Richard's character backstory, and together, we'll try to make sense of this mystery. This is your sassy broadcaster, Silmina, and we're diving into all the available theories about Mr. Sterling himself. So guys, I know some of you haven't even seen his promotional video. This time, let's see it together, so we can analyze it together.
He vowed to stand nearby. The princess dreams of unknown land, far and wide.
Sister. You finally found me. Shh. Look.
Who did this?
What else are you hiding?
Only when the world is flooded with sin shall the night rise as the beacon of light. Sister, does my story displease you? Now, it is my turn to seek you out.
For all those wondering about Richard Sterling's history, you can visit the official Identity V Weibo page, where his character story is posted, in Mandarin, of course. If you choose to use Google Translate, be aware that the results can be rather unpredictable. To save you the trouble, I'll be giving that translation a makeover, making it more comprehensible for you to understand his backstory. Are you ready for this upgrade in translation? Let's go! The Sterling family, an aristocratic clan managing a massive underground business, had been unable to conceive a child for many years. After severing ties with her former partner, Mrs. Sterling gave birth to twins. But when the twins were 4 years old, they inexplicably vanished. Desperate to find the twins, the Sterlings embarked on a path of devout penance to atone for their actions. Soon, the daughter was recovered from Mrs. Sterling's former partner, but the son remained missing for another 3 years. When he was finally found, the boy sang a familiar nursery rhyme that he and his sister used to sing when they played knights and princesses. The sister, recognizing both the rhyme and the boy's story, believed he was her long-lost brother. Despite the twins' appearance of innocence and sweetness, only the sister, who had spent every day with her brother, sensed that something was amiss. She began to notice that her returned sibling was constantly lying. He led the servants to the roof and ordered the housekeeper to remove the ladder. He spread malice among the children, instigating hatred, and he unearthed secrets about their father's illegal dealings, causing arguments between their parents. The sister was the only one who knew about these occurrences, but her brother kept reminding her that he loved her most and that she was not allowed to tell anyone. Only when this world is bad enough, he said, will they cherish us, who symbolize hope. In the shadows, he watched the chaos caused by his lies like a king planning war, manipulating his pawns across the chessboard. Yet, he seemed troubled and lost in thought, as if confronting an unknown dilemma. When the sister reached the age of marriage, weighed down by the secrets she knew, she desired to escape from her brother, whose true identity was uncertain. But one sunny afternoon, her brother pushed her down the stairs. "As long as you cannot leave," he said, "I will always be your knight, and you will never step outside into the world." It was only after this incident that people realized the extent of his malice. Before, they had thought he was a quiet boy who enjoyed reading, watching night dramas, and studying swordsmanship and war strategies. Eventually, it is discovered that in the old family photo album, his face had been scratched out of all pictures taken before the age of 4, replaced with the face of Richard. In the end, when the sister went to the Red Church for her wedding, Richard was confined to a locked room. After the ceremony, the sister vanished, and the Sterlings were found dead in the tower of their mansion. Richard Sterling was now the only heir to the family fortune, and he wore a polite smile, singing the ballad of the night, as he set off on a journey to find his sister. Now, let's dive into the real migraine of analyzing Richard Sterling's lore from the video. And yes, I mean migraine, because trying to piece together a story with practically zero breadcrumbs has me reaching for painkillers. No joke, I'll need some medicine after writing this. Just a reminder, this is all one very wild theory. No solid proof, nada. Just me compiling all the scattered guesses and pushing through the brain fog to make sense of it. So if you have your own theories, feel free to share them, because, trust me, this one's up for grabs. The first thought that hit me after watching the promotional video was that Richard was evil. Just straight up bad guy vibes. But here's the thing. Every villain has a motive, right? So what's Richard's deal? Why destroy his family from the inside out? Is this just good old-fashioned psychopathy? Or is he working towards something bigger? Or maybe, like Naib, he's taking orders from someone else? Digging into this question didn't exactly bring me any clarity. Instead, it pulled me down an even deeper rabbit hole. So, let's start with the basics. Who is this Richard?
This is Richard.
There's been a lot of speculation that the Richard we see in the video isn't the original Richard, who vanished at age 4. I mean, the black hair alone is a dead giveaway, since the original Richard had brown hair. Plus, in the Weibo backstory, Richard's sister senses something off about her brother. But there's also a plot twist. There's also the possibility that this is the same Richard, just brainwashed during those missing years. That would explain why his parents never seemed to suspect a thing even though Richard's appearance changed, because in the end, it's the same Richard, just with a darker, twisted personality. Now, moving on to the juicier question. Why did Richard do all of this? Why go full villain on his family? The backstory suggests Richard is the mastermind behind all the chaos, with only his sister catching on. But poor thing can't do much, because Richard's holding her captive. Emotionally, at least. So, why would Richard turn against his family? Let's rewind a bit. In the Weibo post, it's mentioned that Mr. and Mrs. Sterling originally didn't have children, but after Mrs. Sterling broke things off with her former partner, they had twins. Suspicious as much, eh? The terms broke things off here is pretty vague. A According to a theory I believe in, it hints that Mrs. Sterling had an affair with someone, and Richard and his sister are the result of that. However, the twins went missing at the age of 4. Afterward, it's said that both Mr. and Mrs. Sterling sought to atone for their sins. Sterling possibly confessing to an affair, while Mr. Sterling decided to shut down his shady underground business. Shortly after, their daughter returns, having been held captive by Mrs. Sterling's former lover. But Richard? He's still missing for 3 more years. That is, until one day, he reappears, singing a lullaby that his sister recognizes. At this point, some of you might argue that the Richard they found isn't really Richard. He's an imposter, a fake. And hey, that's totally possible. But the opposite could also be true, since it's never outright stated that this new Richard is a fake. Sure, his hair color's different, but come on, hair dye exists, right? There's just not enough solid evidence here to rule anything out, so I'm rolling with the most sensible theory I can come up with for now. Assuming this Richard is the real deal, his sister starts noticing something off about him. Richard stirs up chaos within the family, to the point where his sister grows to despise his actions. But despite her feelings, she's trapped because Richard manipulates her by saying he loves her. In my eyes, this love feels more like a veiled threat, implying that if she loses his affection, he'll turn on her and do something harmful. It's less about love and more about control. So, why did Richard act this way? Honestly, there's no solid evidence for any one theory, but hear me out. What if he didn't want to do any of this in the first place? There's that line about him sometimes being lost in thought, right? What if, during those missing 3 years, he was taken captive by Mrs. Sterling's former lover and brainwashed to destroy his own family? The motive? It could be vengeance, or maybe even greed. Maybe Richard's real father wanted revenge against the Sterling family, or even wanted Richard to take over the family fortune, or both. This could explain a few things. Who Richard is, why he turned against his family, why his parents didn't seem suspicious of his new look, and why he's so fixated on his sister. Once again, let me remind you, this is all just a theory, not the official story. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to drop your theories in the comments. Now, let's dive deeper into his lore. After his sister reaches adulthood, she's had enough and finally tries to escape the house. But, of course, Richard finds out and pushes her down the stairs. She's probably injured and unable to contact the outside world. And here's where things get juicier. The sister attempts another escape when she's about to get married. Richard, clearly not a fan of the idea, does everything in his power to stop the wedding. This time, however, it seems like the family is finally catching on to how evil Richard truly is. So, what do? They lock him away in a confined room, giving the sister a chance to go through with her wedding and escape his grasp. However, Richard, being the slippery villain he is, manages to break free, perhaps with the help of his biological father. And what does he do? He eliminates his family members in the tower of the mansion. After this, Richard claims the Sterling family inheritance. But there's still one problem: his sister. She's on the loose, and that doesn't sit well with him. So, naturally, Richard starts hunting her down, beginning his search at, well, you guessed it, the Oletus Manor. If we connect this theory with the Red Church lore, where the infamous wedding took place in 1889, and the bride, which is believed to be Richard's sister, mysteriously vanished, then Richard's whole game would line up with that same year. This means he could have been involved in one of the earlier matches, likely before Game 4. Some fans even speculate that Richard is actually Survivor 3005. Though honestly, I'm not entirely sold on that theory myself. It's an interesting connection, but it's still a bit murky. Moving on, let's dig into Richard Sterling's possible character inspirations. Usually, NetEase takes cues from popular culture when naming their Identity 5 characters. So, naturally, there should be some reference tied to Richard Sterling, right? Well, I've come up empty-handed. There are so many Sterlings out there. John Sterling, Clarice Starling, and more. But none seem to have any direct link to our mysterious Richard. If you happen to know the reference, please spill the tea. However, the whole theme of nobility, and that unfamiliar love between brother and sister, does seem to hint at Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. Creepy sibling relationship in that story feels a bit too on the nose to ignore, right? Plus, Richard and his sister singing a poet's verse together as children? That totally screams Gothic, which matches the vibe of Poe's works. And of course, there are other inspirations that come to mind, like doppelgangers, or even the literary styles of Edgar Allan Poe and Fyodor Dostoevsky. These are the kinds of elements that NetEase could easily pull from to craft Richard's eerie and unsettling story. According to the Weibo post or any official Identity 5 news outlets, Richard's role and skills are still shrouded in mystery. There's speculation swirling about him possibly being a kiter, with some rumors suggesting his skill may involve a sword. I mean, how dramatic would it be for him to pull out a sword and swipe at the hunter? Think antiquarian vibes but with a sharper edge. If that's true, hunters better brace themselves for another headache, because we know how much they hate harassers. But don't get too excited just yet. Richard won't be arriving in Essence 1, which drops on September 26, 2024. However, with the trailer already making waves, a lot of fans are crossing their fingers for a Essence 2 release, which would put him on our radars by October 2024. And that's all I've got for now on Richard Sterling, the Knight, and our next survivor in Identity 5. Keep in mind, this is just my theory, based on available sources and some deep discussions with lore enthusiasts. If you've got your own take or wild guesses, I'd love to hear them. This is your ever sassy broadcaster, Selmina, signing off. See you next time.